and so I wasn't really born into a very comfortable environment. So I was, like you said, running away from comfort zone, but I was, I was born outside the comfort zone. So my goal from the beginning was to get to the comfort zone.
Hello everybody and welcome to Running from Comfort. Today's show we have Angad as our guest. Angad originally grew up in India and his story really begins before he was born. So his parents ran a successful business, they were quite wealthy, they had a big mansion, and unfortunately terrorism happened to hit their hometown roughly around the time before Angad was born. This led to a situation where his parents had to flee, they became refugees in their own country, and they lost everything. So Angad grew up in quite poor circumstances, and it really shaped his worldview and his perspective on life, and he's always lived outside the comfort zone. So what I talk to Angad about today is I really go through his life story, and I'm trying to pinpoint what his mindset is and where it's at during different parts of this story. As well as that, we also talk about some other things, such as Angad is fluent in 9 languages, so we talk about that for a little while. And then we also just talk about, giving to other people and being thankful. And something that Angad said to me on the phone before we had this interview that really stuck with me, which is just so true, and that is, life is a gift, and that's what I want to leave everybody with today. Just remember, at the end of the day, no matter what you're going through, no matter how hard life gets, there's always going to be better days on the horizon. And if you want something to be thankful for, just be thankful that you're alive today, because life is a gift. So go out there and live your life to the absolute fullest. And also, I hope that today's show, you might be able to gain a bit of a different perspective on life. I certainly did, sitting down having this conversation with Angad. It really opened my mind as to what it's like to grow up on the other side of the world. So I hope you enjoyed today's interview, and if you do not forget to share it with somebody you know, and make sure that you give it a rating and review. That would mean the absolute world to me. Now, enjoy today's show, guys.
Hello and welcome. This is episode 3 of Running from Comfort. I'm sitting here across the table from a man. His name is Angad. Angad, would you like to introduce yourself to the people?
Hello, my name is Angad. I'm from India, and I'm studying here at Monash. This is my final semester. And on the side, I have a small business. I do IT consulting with a friend of mine. A small business we set up a month ago. And we just help small to mid-sized businesses grow and get their business back on track, or if they have any trouble with running their businesses, we just help them in terms of business consulting and IT consulting. And yeah, we just hit our 8th client, and it's going good so far.
So 1 month, 8 clients.
Yeah,
doing well, I would say, for a startup.
Thank you.
You're doing really well. And as well, what were you studying again?
I'm pursuing Masters of Business Information Systems.
Masters of Business Information Systems. And what more specifically does that entail? Like what?
It's more about the governance side, the governance and management and business side of IT. I mean, there is one side where you talk about coding and what technologies to be brought into use and stuff like that. But then there is another part of IT, the other side of the coin, that talks about how do you govern these things, how do you build governance frameworks, and how do you keep things running, keep the show running, and make sure you sort of monetize the technology to its maximum potential and stuff like that. Or if you have to put in policing frameworks and governance frameworks around technologies. That's what the BIS side of IT is about.
Yeah, so another way, maybe a more simple way of saying that might be making sure business stays afloat, making sure it has policies in place.
Exactly, policy stuff, yeah.
Yeah, okay. No, that's really interesting stuff, and I'm sure learning all of that is going to help your business grow.
I hope it does.
But I'm sure you'll be ready in case, that punch in the face called failure. I mean, that might come hit you, but I think we all know, or I know maybe we might understand, but I'm sure a lot of people understand that, when you take that punch,
yeah, it just makes you stronger.
Exactly right.
If it doesn't kill you, it will make you stronger.
So since you're only a month into your business, are you ready for that punch? Are you waiting for it to come hit you yet, or
I wouldn't want to get punched too early, but sure. I mean, it's gonna happen one day, but see, getting punched in the face is one thing, but if you can prevent that punch, that's even better.
Well, look,
if you can avoid that, if you can dodge that punch, that's even better.
Yeah, definitely you want to avoid the punches, but I mean, in life, I suppose, business or in anything, the punches are you can't avoid them. It's more about a matter of how you respond to that. And
Exactly.
from what I know about your story, which you're about to share with the people, I mean, you're a man who's taken a lot of punches in life.
Oh yeah, a fair share of punches.
You've seen a fair bit, and you're still here. You're still standing, and I imagine you're as strong as what you ever be. I mean, how old are you? You're still young, aren't you?
28.
28. Okay, yeah, still quite young. Maybe slightly older than me, but we can celebrate your 30th with a receding hairline at some point. No, I'm only joking. Angad has a very good hairline, people. Mine, not so much. That's why I had to point that out.
No, he's just messing. He has the most perfect hair ever.
No. These people have probably seen my Instagram. They know my hairline's gone way too far back. All right. But anyways, all right. I think we should just get started on this story. Where would you like to start this story? Where do you think your story kind of begins if you were to tell it?
So I think it all began from me hearing the first story about why we didn't have a home in the first place. I think I was 5 or 4.5 or 5, something like that, and I heard my grandfather talk to my parents about how things were nice and everything was like all hunky-dory back in the day. And I was like, what are you talking about? We had a big house and stuff like that? What are you talking about? We had a business and stuff. And they were talking about how they had a beautiful big business and how they had a 4-story mansion and everything and all that. And I was like, I never saw all that. What are you talking about? And then they told the whole story about, how they had to leave their home and shift to a different place, or sort of migrate to a different place. And we were refugees for quite a long time, and we had to seek refuge and run away from a situation that made us leave our homes, which was terrorism in my case. And things were bad, and this was somewhere around in the early 90s, the late 80s, early 90s period, when terrorism was at its peak in Kashmir. That's where I'm from, my hometown.
In where, sorry?
Kashmir,
yeah.
Kashmir. So then that's where all this was happening, and the terrorism was at its peak in the later half of 1889 and the first half of 1990. And so we had to leave. It was just that place was just unlivable. You could not live there. You could, if someone walks out of the door, you're not sure if they're going to come back in the evening. That's how bad it was. It's someone getting shot, things blowing up around you, somebody getting shot every day, group of people getting shot at once. It was bad. It was really bad.
And how much of this did you live through yourself? Like, how much of this did you see firsthand?
Luckily, none of it. I was fortunate. I don't know. Well, not exactly fortunate, but yeah, I didn't get to see any of this firsthand, because when all this was happening, my mother was expecting me. So she was 3 months into her pregnancy when all this was happening. And that's when they had to flee from the area. They had to leave the area and then shift to a new place. And when I was born, that was like sick. And I wasn't really born in very hygienic or healthy circumstances. I was born in a very small hospital. We had a huge, massive money crunch. So we had to do whatever possible to make ends meet and stuff. And so I wasn't really born into a very comfortable environment. So I was, like you said, running away from comfort zone. But I was, I was born outside the comfort zone. So my goal from the beginning was to get to the comfort zone.
Yeah. So, and I imagine a lot of people, their goal in life is to become more comfortable. But I think a lot of us, we kind of already live relatively comfortable lives. But I want to just take you back a little bit. So roughly what age were you when you started asking these questions? Because I'm just trying to imagine, so you're already in a scenario where I'm imagining you don't have a lot. So, your parents, they've escaped, they've become refugees. And now you're at a point where you're sitting there thinking your parents are telling these stories about, the businesses, the mansions, and you're looking around saying, we don't have any of that stuff.
Exactly.
What kind of age were you then?
I think this was, I was in first standard, so I was 5. I was 5 years old, and the thing about at the age of 5 is you observe your environment a lot. You're the way you perceive things, the way you grasp things, or the way you look at things, and your retention power or your absorption power is at its peak at that age, because your brain has just started working, and your brain has just gained some few extra brain cells, and you're like, hey, what's all this? I mean, all this information coming in. And then you see around you and you see kids happy, kids playing and stuff, kids having all the proper clothes the 5-year-old should have, all the toys a 5-year-old should have, all the basic amenities a 5-year-old should have. And then you look at yourself and you don't exactly have all of that. So you start asking questions like, if the guy next door has it, why don't I? And then that's when you go back to me like, Dad, Mom, Dad, why do I not have those fancy shoes, or why do I not have that fancy sport equipment? I mean, what's wrong with us?
So, like you're saying, the other children around you had a lot of things, but you didn't. So
exactly.
Did you want to maybe talk a little bit maybe about like what were your living conditions like at home?
Okay, so when we migrated out of Kashmir, for the first few months we were living in migration camps, which was basically just a tarpaulin camp. That's it.
Just a what, sorry?
A tarpaulin.
Oh, like a tarp. Yeah,
a tarp camp. Yeah, exactly like that. So so sanitation, all those hygiene and stuff out of the window. None of that. So people going and defecating in public, in the open, in the fields or whatever. So sanitation wasn't exactly A grade. And so the first 3 months were like that, and then Dad went about and sort of found a more concrete, more stable living environment, and we moved into a house as tenants. We found a rented place. The landlord was nice, so he didn't bother us much and stuff like that, and he knew what had happened, so he was quite sympathetic about it. He had some sympathy and empathy towards us. And so that living condition was really horrible. We just had a small kitchen, a very, very small kitchen, and all of us were living in a 10 by 11 room.
A 10 by 11 room?
Yeah.
And how many people were living in that room?
5.
5 people?
Yeah.
And so when you say a 10 by 11, was that like the entirety of the whole place?
Yep.
So kitchen?
All of it.
Lounge room?
Yep.
Bedroom? So is it all kind of in one then? Or?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
And so did you have like any mattresses or anything to sleep on?
No.
Or nothing?
Nothing.
Just the floor?
Just the floor.
Yeah, wow. What about blankets?
We had some, because when we left Kashmir, we took all these basic stuff with us. But that's all we had. That's all we had. We just had few blankets and clothes and utensils and stuff like that, and dishes and all that. That's it. Yeah. Just the basic stuff. Just the basic things to keep you going.
And okay, so when you started going to school, you were going to school with kids that had more things than you, yeah.
Exactly.
And how did you feel seeing all the other kids with everything else?
I mean, at first I was like, I felt, I guess, a mix. It was a mixed feeling. It was a mixture of jealousy and sadness. I was, I wouldn't say jealousy exactly, but a feeling of why do I not have this, or what's wrong with me? What's wrong with my life? I mean, I'm smarter than them. I can do things better than them, and why do they get to have all these good things and not me? So yeah, I mean, it was a mix of a little bit of I don't know. I was a bit furious as well, and it was a mix of like I said, jealousy and sadness.
Yeah, and I suppose. So you had a mixture of like that jealousy and sadness, which I can definitely...
I wouldn't say jealousy exactly, but as a kid you have that, right? You have that little feeling in you, like, why do I not have it? I need to have it too. I mean, yeah, that feeling. I don't know if jealousy is exactly the word for that.
Yeah, but I mean, I suppose it would be kind of...
it makes you envious.
Yeah, it makes you a little bit envious.
It makes you envious, like, why do you not have it?
And was there a moment where maybe that mind shift switched a little bit, or
no? That stayed with me till I think 6th grade. I felt like that for the first 7, 8, for the first 11, 12 years of my life.
First 11 years of your life, like that, yeah. And then I suppose, when did you start to change that mindset, and what started shifting that for you? Was there anything you decided that you were going to do, or?
No, I just made peace with it. I just made peace with the fact that this is how it's going to be. And then there's something that my dad kept telling me. He's like, if you want something in life, you have to earn it. Because him having had to lose all that he had, all that house, that business and stuff, and not just my father, my grandfather, my uncle, my auntie, my mother, and obviously my mother's family, because we were all living in the same vicinity and we all had to leave. And like him having had to lose all that, he learned a lot from that, and he made sure that he sort of he gave those values to me. He passed on those values to me, and he said, like, if you really see something really fancy and shiny and you want it, you have to earn it. There is no easy way. It's not like you just say it and there's no Aladdin's lamp. There's no genie that's gonna show up and you're gonna say, like, hey, you can't make a wish and it's gonna happen. You have to put in efforts. You have to put in miles. You have to put in certain yards to get things done. You just can't open your mouth and say, hey, I want this, and it's gonna just poof appear in front of you. It's not gonna happen. That's not how life works. And this is really hard for a father to say to a kid who is just 7. I can't even imagine if I had to say this to my son who is 7. I don't think I would be able to fathom the guts to say that. I don't know. My father had to say those things to me when I was 7, and he told me, like, if you really want something in life, you have to earn it.
See, and just for a different kind of.
And yeah, that's when and that's when the mindset shifted. I'm like, okay, fine. I think I'll just put in efforts then. And he made this environment in house. He's like, he kept his reward points for me. Like every time I do something good, he would sort of reward me with something like, if I do the dishes on time, I get a candy or a cent or a rupee or whatever. And so yeah, that sort of helped me understand how the value of things. Things don't come easy in life. That sort of helped me understand why things around you are valuable and why you should value them, and they're worth, basically. Things around you are worth something. They just don't come around for free.
Yeah. Wow. And I mean, I guess that's a good strategy there that your father used. We had the reward strategy. I mean, definitely what I've learned from people like, let's say, Jordan Peterson is, you can't necessarily be a tyrant. You have to have a reward system, whether you want to improve yourself or whether, you've got like a child or something and you want to try and teach them something. But I wanted to offer just another perspective. So, I mean, very early on at 7 years old, your dad's telling you, if you want something, go out and get it. I'm just going to briefly just cut in there and say, when I was about 7 years old, now my parents did a decent job of, teaching me that I have to earn what I want in life. At the same time, they did spoil me a lot, and I was very good at manipulating kind of my parents for what I wanted. So at 7 years old, if I wanted something, I wasn't working hard for it. The only thing I was working hard on was my sales pitch to my dad as to why he has to buy this for me. So, and that, I think that's a bit more of the Western lifestyle. I think when we grow up over here, we're kind of born into a lot more wealth. We're born with a lot more things, and even some of us, even if some of us, aren't born into as much wealth, a lot of us were always born with a roof over our heads. Mm-hmm. We always have, both our parents, well, a lot of us, not all of us do, mm-hmm. but we generally have dinner every night, simple things like that. And I definitely think they're things that are mostly taken for granted. But mm-hmm. I know a lot of us also born in that middle class area where, we do have excess wealth and we can have nice things. And right. we're kind of born a little bit with this sense of privilege and entitlement, like, hey, mm-hmm. I deserve this, right. Just because I was born on this planet, which at the end of the day, that's all bullshit. We're born here. We're all born here. We all die. Like, we're all the same at the end of the day. Exactly. And we aren't entitled to anything. We have this illusion that we are exactly. from our upbringing, but we're not. When we do want something, we actually have to go out and get it. Yep. So I think it's very interesting, from where you were born on your side of the world and your circumstances, very early on, you already had to have that mindset because, I mean, as you've told me in the past, you were born from nothing. Well, not born from nothing, that, your family had nothing.
Had nothing.
And you had to work very hard. Did you have to start working at a young age as well?
No, that's one thing my parents made sure of, that I don't have to work. They always emphasized on education. Like, if you study early on and you get good education early on, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy. That's one thing my father kept saying. Then there's one of my mother's pet quote, and she says, like, if studying was easy, everyone would do it. So, and then she was like, if you need to put in yards, you need to put in effort, and that's one thing that she always emphasized on. And she's like, you can work on later in life, but what matters right now is that you get the good quality of education. You get really good quality of education, and that's going to help you later on in life.
Yeah. Education definitely, it's going to help everybody in life, I suppose. Yeah. I'd probably say the only thing that's a bit sad is, I guess, a lot of people stop their education after school. Mm-hmm. I think maybe what we could use is people continuing their education, which I see a bit more of an emphasis on, but sorry, that's just a little side ramble. Yeah. Now, here's something I wanted to ask you. So right before we started recording this interview, you said that every day you were taking punches from life until about the age of 15.
15, yeah.
Can you tell us about some of those punches that you used to take on a regular basis? Like, what was something that regularly would come up and hit you and you'd be like, oh man, like, tell us about these punches you were taking.
Yeah, so like I said early on, certain people are born into comfort zone and then they sort of try to get out of it to get something in life. It was the other way around for me. I was born in a discomfort zone, if you may, and there was no comfort in that zone, absolutely no comfort at all. And my goal was to get out of that discomfort zone and move on to a comfort zone, which of course has its challenges on the way. That you don't, it's like I said, like if you want to get from point A to point B, where point B has better prospect, and you obviously will have some challenges across the way. So yeah, life kept throwing punches and I kept taking it until I was 15. And at the age of 15, I realized for the first time that okay, things around me are getting comfortable. And like so some of the punches that life threw at me was having to live through school with minimal amenities. People would get books fresh and first hand. I had to buy books that were second hand or third hand because they were cheaper, right? And obviously they come when you use something that is second hand or third hand, it obviously has degraded over time, right? And even the syllabus keeps changing, right? So you might not have the same chapter in the new book. So yeah, that was quite a challenge to get through that. And just the quality of food that we were eating was not really A grade. So yeah, we had to compromise on basic things in life, sanitation, food, clothing. Things that everyone should deserve and everyone deserves and should have. Healthcare options and stuff like that. We had to always choose for the lowest possible option, the cheapest possible option, which obviously if it's cheap, it's not going to be of good quality. So those some of the things that punches, if you may, that I had to take on my face on every day. Just compromising in life, just to keep. There were a lot of compromises. You always had to settle for less, but at the same time keep your chin up and keep moving forward. I think that's something that sort of built that mindset in me. Like, hey, I'm not going to die today. I have to live. I need to live another day to fight. I don't want to give up today. I'm going to live another day to fight. And this kept on, and days went by, weeks went by, months, years, and now we are here. Comfort zone. But then, once you step into that comfort zone and you start getting cozy and comfy, that's when realize that's when stagnancy creeps in, and you just settle in there, like you're just not doing anything, you're not doing much. And that's when you start getting stagnant, and that's when you again need to hustle and keep on moving forward so that you keep climbing the ladder of life.
So what did you do to plan on starting to hustle again? So you obviously realized complacency isn't something for you, and you wanted to try and get more out of it. So what did you start doing?
So that's when I started my first business, and this is during 2006 or 2005.
So how old are you then?
I was 15. I was in 10th standard. I was 15.
You started your first business at 15.
Yeah.
Natural entrepreneur. What was the business?
So this was the time when the computers, the era of personal computers was around, and everyone was buying one. Everyone wanted to have a personal computer at home. So I was like, fine, and I just happened to open mine once. Something wasn't working in it, and I was like, I'll fix it myself. I'll do it myself. So I just opened up my whole computer and I saw how things were inside, and I identified the different parts. I was like, I can build this. This seems easy.
So you didn't have any guides? You just took your computer apart and figured it out?
Yeah.
Didn't Google anything?
No, nothing. We didn't have, Google wasn't really efficient.
In 2005, you get a bit of information.
But wasn't. Yeah, I did Google a few things, like what is an SMPS or what's a motherboard and how cables go around in a PC and what needs to connect where and stuff like that. But yeah, rest of it I figured it on my own. So, but then I was like, I think I can build this. I think I can build it. And so I went around asking people if somebody wanted to buy a PC, and then happened to be one of my uncle. He wanted to buy a PC for his son. I was like, you know what? I'll get it for you. I'll make it for you. You just give me a certain cut out of it, and we'll be happy. We'll both have happy days." He's like, "Fine, do it." So that's when I made my first PC, and he gave me. I think he gave me 2,000 rupees, which is which is $40.
$40.
Which is $40 in Australian. Yeah.
First sale.
Yeah, in that times money. 2,000 rupees in that times. $40 in that times money. I don't know if much has changed since 2004. Has it?
Honestly,
not a lot.
Probably like a little bit, but
okay.
I'm not sure how relative it would be to how much 2,000 rupees would be in India now. But
yeah.
And then
still the same.
And how long did you carry on this business for?
So I did this for a year and a half, and I went on from making one PC a day to I was making 85 a week, and selling them to small businesses and shops and government offices. So yeah, it was a good piece of. It was good. It was. I would say I invested my time well.
Yeah.
In that, yeah.
And you would have, I'm guessing you would have learned a lot as well very early on about business. Like what kind of things were you learning as you were doing this for a year and a half? Was there anything significant you learned that you still apply today, or?
One of the learnings that I took away from it was to invest in people and not invest in technologies and all that stuff. If you invest in somebody, if you build a contact, if you build a relation with someone, it's going to last you way longer than any technology that has been around. So if you build a relation with someone, and if the person is willing to work for you, even if a new technology comes around, and that person is willing to put in hours to learn that new technology and still continue working with you, I think that's something that you should value and cherish.
Yeah. So building meaningful relationships and making sure you're keeping the contacts. Yeah. So from entrepreneur at 15, what was next?
Next, so back in India, it's a joke, but it's not exactly true. It's true to some extent, but not entirely. Back in India, an average Indian kid gets only two options.
Two options. What are they?
You either become a doctor or you either become an engineer.
Doctor or engineer.
Doctor or an engineer.
That's the only career.
That's the only career option.
Just
no, that's a joke. But yeah, that's what most of us pick.
But we're still early in the computer era, or computers and the internet's really starting to kick off around this time. So was there much faith in anything to do with that type of technology in IT?
There sure was, and everybody was talking about IT, and everyone wanted to sit in a 4x4 cubicle and make mint money. And that was the mindset back then. If you get placed in an IT company back in India, and that India at that time still being the IT hub of the world, IT had amazing prospects and still has amazing prospects back in India. So I think that's something that really motivated me. And me being from me having done this little business that had a little bit to do with IT and computers, I thought that this would be a very lucrative pathway for me in future. So I just picked it up. I was like, let's do it. And so that's where the journey began of setting foot out of your comfort zone. That's when I had to leave home, go to a different state, because my university was in a different state. So I wasn't living with my parents anymore. I had to live in a dorm on campus. And that was the first time I really stepped out of my the comfort zone that I thought I had built. And that's when life hit me really hard, and I was like, wow.
So you moved out of home. How old were you at this point?
18.
18. And you said it hit you really hard. What hit you really hard when you moved out of home?
The whole thing. I mean, India is a very diverse country. If you travel 40 kilometers, you'll have new culture, new food, new way of clothing, new lifestyle, new everything, new language. I mean, India is really diverse. And I had leaped over 5 states. So I went from North India to South India, and the culture down there is entirely different. It was a cultural shock for me. It took me almost a year to settle in. Everything was new for me. Everything, the way people, the mannerisms, culture, language, lifestyle, the outlook that people had towards life everything was different. So it took me a while to get accustomed to it, or it took me a while to acclimatize myself to that environment. But yeah, it was fun. I learned a lot of things. The learning curve was very steep. I had a very steep learning curve. There was no time to sit back and relax and take life as it comes day by day. I was like, there was no time for that. I had to
Hey guys, are you enjoying today's show? If so, do us a favor. Screenshot you listening to this on your smartphone and then upload it to your Instagram story and tag me at Galloways_take. You guys have no idea how much it would mean if you could do this for me. As we are just starting out, I'm trying to get as much exposure as I possibly can. And if you are enjoying, why not share it with the people that you know? So, hey, make sure you put that on your Instagram feed, and I promise I will reshare it myself. Now, back to today's show.
The challenge there was so when I was in college and doing my undergrad. The biggest challenge was the language. Everybody around me either spoke to each other in the local language or English, and I wasn't used to both of them. Because back home, why would I bother speaking in English? Because everyone around me spoke Hindi. So it's like, let's talk to, like, I mean, if you speak in English, it doesn't make sense. I mean, if the person next to you can speak your native tongue, why would you speak to them in a foreign language? It doesn't make sense, does it? So yeah, so for the first 18 years of my life, I was pretty much used to using Hindi on a day-to-day basis. And yeah, I would use English, but very minimal use of English. But when I used to when I moved to my college, my university, everyone around me was either speaking English or their own local language, and I was like, and yeah, but English wasn't really, I wouldn't say English was the best way of communication because most of the people I wanted to talk to were not really, didn't really have a good command on English. So getting your thoughts across and understanding somebody else's thoughts was a challenge. So I was like, okay, I'm going to step out of my comfort zone. I'm going to learn their language. Which wasn't easy, I'll tell you, it wasn't easy at all. So it took me, I think it took me 3 semesters to frame my first sentence in their local language. It took me 3 semesters.
That's not about, how many, so what is that, 1.5 years?
Yeah, 18 months. It took me 18 months to be able to frame the first sentence in their native tongue.
And then I think you also told me you can speak, you're fluent in 9 languages now?
9 languages, yeah.
Fluent in 9 languages. And what does learning another language
do to you? Yeah. See, learning new languages exposes you to new cultures, new schools of thoughts, new perspectives to life, new ideologies, new literature. And when you are exposed to a certain to literature from a certain language, that helps you understand their history a little better. And that sort of, and then you can go on and connecting dots and understand why people are today the way they are and why they have a certain mindset. And that sort of helps you make better friends, right? And make quality friends, if I may. And yeah, that's the whole thing. I mean, you can even, it helps you survive. I look at it as a survival thing. It's a survival instinct. I mean, if I am thrown out, so I can also speak a bit of Tamil. So if I had to live in northern part of Sri Lanka, which is outside India, I can survive. I mean, I would not be stuck in a place where everyone around me speaks a different language and I cannot communicate with them and get me at least to the closest point of help. So I look at it that way. But yes, other things like you said, what it does to you, it sort of, it expands your horizon. It
opens
helps,
your mind a bit.
It opens your mind a bit. And it helps you start valuing, you start having more value for other cultures and other other people from different communities. I mean, when you engage into their lifestyle, you understand how they live their life. It helps you understand their values, and you can I'm not finding the right word for it. You start respecting somebody else's opinions on life.
Yeah, so you're not just more set in your own opinions.
Exactly.
You can take the time to think about what someone says and be like, okay, that's why they.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And just briefly, I just want to touch on it again. Can you just reel off what are the 9 languages that you can speak?
Okay. So I speak Sanskrit because I was born into a Brahmin Hindu family. So Sanskrit is a must. So because all the old ancient literature in Hinduism was written in Sanskrit, so that's a given. So any person born in a Brahmin Hindu family will know Sanskrit. And then there's Kashmiri, which is my mother tongue, Hindi, English, Dogri and Punjabi. Dogri and Punjabi are spoken in Jammu. That's the place we migrated to from Kashmir when we had to leave because of terrorism. So the people speak people in Jammu speak two major languages, Dogri and Punjabi. And then I moved to Karnataka, which is a state in southern India. And the place I was in had a local language called Tudu, and the language that is spoken across Karnataka is Kannada. So that's 8. And then I moved to Chennai for work. When I finally got placed in an IT company, I had to move to Chennai for work, and then I picked up Tamil. So these are the 9 languages I speak. And apart from that, I speak a little bit. I can understand a little bit of Spanish.
A little bit of Spanish as well. Is that one just for the Spanish ladies, or?
Well, that's how I learned it, though. Yeah.
Okay, so then continue on. So you studied in India for a while, and then where did that end? Where did you end up? So how did you end up in Australia? I guess be my next question.
Right. So I always wanted to do my masters, and I was exploring options. Where to go next, and which country or which university would be a good option for me to pursue my masters in. I worked in IT for 5 years, and then after that I felt like, okay, I think I understand how things work. I know the business and all that stuff, but I need to learn more in life, because that's something that always stayed with me. Never settle for less. That's something that my father kept telling me. Never settle for less. The moment you start feeling that you are comfortable, move out of it. That's something my father kept telling me. It's like the moment you start feeling comfortable in life, the moment you feel, okay, I have everything, that's when there's something more out there that you should have, that you should learn.
So when you're getting comfortable, it's like, no, let's not do that. Let's push harder.
Exactly.
Work harder.
Exactly.
And I think, what was it? I heard a great quote the other day. It was like, slipped my mind. We'll get back to that later. But
Okay.
forget about that quote. So you're on your way to Australia. You get to study your masters. Yes.
Yeah. And so then I was like looking at the US and Princeton and all those universities. I was like, then I picked up Australia because I did some research, and I read an article about Melbourne being the most livable city in the world and how student friendly it is. And I was like, it seems like a fun culture to be in. Let's go for it. And so I landed up here. I ended up here and started back in July 2017, and it's been 3 semesters now, and I'm trying to learn a new language here, but there's no one around who can teach me a new language.
Continue on with the Spanish, I'd say. That's a good language to have. It's one of the most spoken languages in the world.
It sure is. But I haven't had. There are other things that keep me occupied now. I guess I think I had more time back in the day for all these side tasks, side errands, if you may. But yeah, I think now things have. There are things that take more of my bandwidth now. I have very little bandwidth for doing.
Trying to learn another language.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So,
but I've picked on some slang here, some Aussie slang.
Oh yeah, what's your favorite Aussie slang?
My favorite Aussie slang would be fair dinkum.
Fair income.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
Yeah,
it's fair income. Yep. Yeah. And just in terms of like being in Australia now, how does what you see in Australia and our culture differ from the environment? More specifically, the environment you grew up in when you were and you were living more in like a poverty type environment. Like how does it differ? Would you say?
Oh, it's like 2 different worlds. It's 2 different worlds. It's as different as things can be. There's a massive economic gap. I mean, it's not the same anymore, but I mean, back in the day, yes, it was. And the thing with economy is like it drives everything else. Your healthcare, other options, the quality of food, quality of life, all those things are attached to that. So yeah, just that one thing, small thing is like not in the right place, and everything else around it gets affected. And just being able to not have the quality of healthcare, because that's something that's really essential for life.
Yeah, healthcare is very important.
Very basic things in life. Water, the quality of water. You can drink right from the tap here.
Yeah.
If you do that back in India, you will definitely die.
Definitely die?
Definitely die, or at least get a very I don't know, you'll at least get a bad stomach to begin with. You'll definitely get a very upset belly.
So what do you like boiling water and then drinking it after
filter it, boil it, do
bottled
whatever.
water?
Yeah. Well, bottled water was not an option because we weren't exactly, didn't exactly have that kind of money lying around. And so we had to boil water or filter it, or some sort of cleansing process had to be done before you could drink that water. But there's very little things in life that we don't really appreciate and have value for. Very, very, very like the very trivial things. Water. That's the most basic necessity for anyone.
It's the only thing you need to survive.
Exactly. I mean, that's the most basic thing you need to survive: food and water. And if you don't have those two things right in place, then everything else becomes a challenge. Because if you're not getting the right kind of diet, right kind of food supplies and stuff, that affects everything else around you. So, yeah.
And would you say over here in Australia, do you see much of a different perspective or outlook in life with the people over here as opposed to when you were growing up?
The sure is not a lot, but a few things are, of course, the culture is different, that has its own differences there, and the way people look at life is different. I mean, back in India, if you're a middle class family, it's more about getting to the next level and finding comfort and stuff like that. And people who are below that line, I mean, it's for them it's a day-to-day struggle. I've seen people living off $1 a day. That's $50 in India. I've seen people living off $1 a day.
$1 a day. What can you get for $1 a day?
I mean, see, the thing about cities in India is people of all economic brackets or wealth brackets can live. Even if you're below poverty line, you can live. Even if you are the wealthiest person in the city, you can live there. Live in the same city. That's the gradient is really extreme. You can people earning $50 a day in Indian rupees, or let's do dollars. People earning $1 a day live in very miserable circumstances, and then you just move all the way up to people earning $1,000 a day. I mean, the gradient is really. I mean, the spectrum is quite vast. You see all sorts of people living in the same city. Another difference that I find in perspective is people enjoy life here. Or maybe the reason they are able to enjoy life is because they have not seen struggle. There was not much to fight for.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the systems here are so nice. The government systems here are so nice that you just have everything you need. Even if you are there's Centrelink, right? Even if you are not making enough, you still have government supporting you. You don't have something like that back in India. Right, so things like that, and people enjoy life here. But back in where I was from, it was all about survival. It was you could not have the slightest thought of enjoying the day. There was no such thing as enjoying the day.
Not at all.
Not at all.
There was nothing that you'd look forward to at the end of a long day.
Sleeping in the bed.
Sleeping.
A roof over your head was the end goal by the end of the day. You should have a comfortable place to sleep.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess here what we have is, I don't know, we have a lot of different forms of entertainment.
Exactly.
We all have a lot of free time.
The idea of having a good time is very different. Is very different. I mean, if I tell you, hey Zach, I think we had a good time last night, or we had a great time last evening, which would mostly when we went out, we had a couple of drinks and stuff. We had a gala time, right? It would mean something like that. But if I said something back, if I said something like this back in where I'm from, like I had an amazing time, which would mean you probably would have had a good meal or had a nice sleep or something like that. I mean, that's a contrast. You can see the contrast there, right? That's a huge difference. And having the idea of having a good time is so different. Or I mean, it is same back in India now, but back in the day when I was growing up or when I was in those circumstances, I mean, the idea of having a good time would mean that, I slept well, or I had a satisfying meal.
Good food, good rest.
Yeah.
Some nice clean water.
Yeah.
And then I guess what else I wanted to touch on here was you did some aid work.
Yep.
Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, so I think I was in Chennai. Yeah, I was in Chennai in 2000, December of 2015 or 16? 15. December 2015, and some really massive flash floods hit the city, entire city, and most of it was underwater. And these were like one of the worst floods Chennai has had in the past 100 years. And Chennai is a kind of city that doesn't really need a drainage system because it does not really rain too much. And having all that water at once and the lack of drainage system made matters worse. So everybody was stuck. Businesses were shut down, schools were shut down, hospitals. Even some hospitals had to.
So just to clarify, this was flooding.
There was flooding. Yes, there was flooding. And then people formed rescue groups and stuff like that. So I was part of one of those. I and a few friends of mine, we got supplies, food, basic things like food, biscuits, milk, some snacks, something to eat, some ready to cook food, and all that, and those nappies for babies, and sanitary pads for women if anybody was in need of those. So sort of started making the supply boxes and started getting it from point A to point B to people who were in need. And we were coordinating with different non-government organizations, NGOs, and we were coordinating with more groups of people and with the Indian Army to get all these supplies to people who were in need. And there was this program where you could enlist yourself and you could help the army go into places. As a civilian, you could help the army and go into places and help extract people who were stuck in debris or who were stuck in places they couldn't get out of from. So I spent 4 days there doing all that aid work. So I mean, it's the idea of giving back, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you are happy. You are in the comfort zone. Somebody is not. Try helping. I mean, that's the whole thing. Try to give back to community. The idea of giving back to community is something that we need in life.
And why do you think helping people is so important?
Because I remember the day when I needed help. I would have really appreciated it. Did I miss it?
That's okay. Continue.
When I remember the day when I was, in need, and I would have really appreciated if somebody would have come and helped me. So yeah, I mean, the idea of giving back, when you have something in surplus, or when you have something in sufficiency, it's always nice to give back. It's always nice to give. It sort of helps. It helps make someone else's day or life better.
Yeah. And is there anything you do at the moment actively to try and help other people in need, or?
Right, as of today?
Yeah, like anything you're doing at the moment?
Not something in this capacity, but at the moment I'm part of a peer mentor program here at Monash University. Peer mentoring is about helping new students, new international students settle in at Monash and in Melbourne, so that they can it sort of gives them a cushion for that.
A cushion for the punch that's on
for
its
the
way?
punch, yeah, for the punch that's on its way, and for the cultural shock, obviously, that they will experience in the coming weeks. So yeah, I think that sort of engagement with people coming in, people who are fresh off the hook, and sort of helping them. Hey, it's okay. I'm there for you. Relax. If something goes wrong, let me know. We'll help you. We'll sort it out for you. And the thing about peer mentoring is like we sort of try to help even at personal level. If somebody's having a bad time or somebody's feeling low, just hang out with them, have a chat. Let me know if something's bothering you. See if I can help you in something like that.
Yeah. See, I'm a big believer in helping people and giving back. I mean, especially in our society, I think a lot of people do have enough wealth that they can at least give something.
Right.
I think the other thing that gets lost is you don't always have to give money. You can give back to people in a whole manner of ways.
Yeah.
It can be through your
just
time.
be compassionate. Be compassionate. Give your time.
It could be your time. I mean, you might have a skill that you could help somebody else learn. You might mentor somebody. I mean, you might go volunteer. I don't know. You could do volunteering in loads of different places.
Sure can.
Feed some homeless people.
Yeah.
Whole manner of things like you could do. And I find myself, like, in times when I've gone out and I've actively done things to help people, whether it be, just randomly, buying a homeless person a meal.
I do that all the time.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I don't understand in Melbourne.
Excuse me.
It's okay. So in Hobart, we do have homeless people, but you don't necessarily see them a lot. And I think one of my biggest culture shocks being in Melbourne is just the amount of homeless people on the street. So I mean, I on a few times, I've gone out and I've, just seen one, and I'm going into a store. I'll come out, I'll buy them something in the store, hand it to them, and it's straight away. It almost feels like it's a blessing. It's like, and always trying to have maybe a brief word of them, because I think especially to a lot of people in that situation, it's a very hopeless situation. And sometimes, the statistics, 99% of homeless people are going to stay homeless, but the 1% that get out of there, they're going to need some help. They're going to need encouragement. So I'm always, trying to.
That's a good thing, Zach. I mean, that's a really kind thing that you do. I mean if you can spread that, if you can make more people aware of it, I mean that's just amazing. That just makes your life complete.
And what I don't understand though is I don't always do that. I do that sometimes. I mean, sometimes I don't always do that, but when I can, I try. But what I don't really understand is just how easily people ignore them on the street. So many people just walk past them, and when I talk to other people about the homeless people around, people are just like, oh well, they got themselves there. Oh well, they're probably into drugs. Oh well, it's this, it's that. It's I mean, none of that really matters to me at the end of the day. I don't understand how so many people can just walk past them on the street and not think twice. Every time I see one of them, it's like heart goes out to them.
Yeah, it does. Wow. It does. Sure does.
And even if they screwed their life up, I mean, does not.
Everyone deserves a second chance.
Yeah. Second chance, third chance, 1,000 chance. We're human. Yeah. We all screwed up. Imagine if all of us, I want people listening to think about this for a moment. Imagine if all of us were accountable for every bad thing that we've done in our life. Imagine we didn't get away with anything that we've done.
We would all end up in hell.
That's a good answer. Oh wow. I think that's a good note to end it on, really. I think this has been a great conversation, but
thanks, Zach.
It's been really good. But I want to just say one more thing, and this was something you said to me over the phone when we were planning this interview, and it's something that really rings true to me, and that is, you said this to me: life is the gift. And I think that's what people just need to be reminded of sometimes. Gratefulness is very important. Life is the gift itself, and actually, we're nearly done. I just remembered. Couple more questions.
Yeah, sure.
All right. What is your biggest regret so far in life, if you have any?
Ooh, okay. My biggest regret would be I had a chance to join the Indian Armed Forces, and because that's the highest form of service there is. I mean, if you can serve the nation, if you can give back to the nation that gave you so much, there's no bigger service than giving back to the people. Because army, the people have a wrong idea about army. Army is just not for fighting wars. Army helps in building communication towers. It helps build hospitals, schools, bridges, roads, whatnot, all sorts of things. So it's a way of giving back to people. And I had a very amazing opportunity to join the army. I was almost through. I was through, to be honest. And but I, being the only child my parents have, my mother was a little bit, don't go to the army and stuff like that, because I don't know, she had her own concerns. So I changed my mind. I didn't want to sort of, upset her or whatever. And I didn't join the army. I went and I joined an IT job. So I think that's something but I've still not deviated very far from the idea of giving back. I still try to give back to people in whatever capacity possible. But yeah, I think that is, I think, one of the small regrets I have in life.
Yeah, and here's my follow-up question to that, and that is, would you change that if you could?
I guess no. I'm happy the way things have turned out, and yeah, I wouldn't change the day. I wouldn't change the day. I think I'm happy with the day things have turned out.
I think that's a kind of a good sort of perspective to have. I mean, I think at the end of the day, life happens the way it's supposed to go, and when the difficult times hit, take that as a lesson, because if there's one thing that it doesn't take a lot of digging to find this out. It's that through every failure comes growth.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And the tougher the challenge, the more the growth. It's just a matter of getting up afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. Life will keep throwing punches at you, and it'll keep you. And there was this beautiful quote that I read somewhere, was like, Oh man, I forgot the quote as well. It was about, it was about how your glory is not in falling. When you take a punch and hit the ground, it's okay, but your glory lies in getting back up
Yeah.
and taking the fight to the next day.
How's the song go again? I get knocked down, I get up again.
Yeah, exactly.
And the last question, just very quickly, what's the future plans for you?
The future
What
plans.
can we expect for the follow-up podcast? What should we be looking forward to?
The future plans would be to, first wrap up this degree that I've, delved myself into, and then and try to sort of expand the business a bit more and get to talk to you again.
I look forward to it.
Likewise, me too.
I don't know. We'll say. I'm imagining we'll have a follow-up interview. And that is the conclusion of today's show. The interview kind of ended slightly abruptly, but we basically had wrapped it up. So I hope you enjoyed listening. And if you did and you made it this far, I want to thank you for making it this far. It means so much to me. And also, don't forget to give us a rating and a review. Now, go out there, go enjoy your day and live life to the fullest.